Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Catherine Mattice. I'm the founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We're focused on building positive, thriving work environments. And today I have Jodi Brandstetter. How's it going, Jodi?
Hello from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, it's cold. I'm in San Diego in my short sleeves.
Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in.
I can't help it. I pay a lot to live here. Got to show it off. So Jodi, you are a 20 plus HR and talent professional and a best-selling author and design thinking certified and a coach of HR professionals wanting to grow. And I'm excited to talk to you about design thinking. So we got a lot of ground to cover here.
That sounds great. I love talking about design thinking, and I love spending time talking about HR and how to help our industry thrive.
Yeah, you and I both. So first, let's just start off with, well, first of all, what's the name of your book?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So my two solo books are Hire by Design and HR by Design, and they're both about design thinking. One's about the hiring practices and how to use design thinking, and the other one's on how to use design thinking within solving a problem within HR. And then I have a couple of collective books where I've written a chapter in them. And so I have Talent Impact, Forward Impact, and Marketing Fusion are three other books. And I have, because I love writing, I guess, I have my next solo book coming out March, April called Career Circle, which is 20 ideas on building your HR career from search all the way to hopefully independence.
Wow. Okay. So you've got a lot, and I know I've written two books. The third is a collection of stories, but that people are like, "Is that hard?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy, but also if you know what you're talking about and it's all rolling around in your head, it's not hard in that sense. But that's a conversation for another day. Go ahead.
Absolutely. But there's also, if you have a structure, if you have outline, if you take little pieces at a time, you can make a book happen. It's just being dedicated to the journey of writing the book.
I love that. That is indeed, yeah, being dedicated to the journey. I love that. So tell us, what is design thinking? What does that mean?
So it's a methodology. So it helps you solve problems and challenges. What makes it different than other methodologies is that it looks at both the person who's going to be handling maybe that process or that product or the kind of the user experience, as well as the business experience. So they want to make sure that whatever solution you come up with is desirable for the person, but then also feasible and viable for the business. And so when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, one, I've been doing design thinking without even knowing it my whole career. And then two, I'm like, this is the methodology for HR, because our whole purpose in life is to create a great work experience for the employee, that they feel like they can come to work and be themselves and be able to do a job and be successful, as well as making sure that the people that are in the business is helping the business thrive so that they're profitable and they have the revenues they need. So I was like, this is it. This is, I need to know everything about it because this is what my clients need.
Yeah. That's HR. There's a lot on HR shoulders. And I was joking there for a while, kind of serious. HR brought the world's businesses through COVID. That was HR.
Yeah.
Wasn't the leaders, it was HR. So
much happened during COVID that HR had to deal with.
So can you give us like a real explicit example of design thinking in HR and how what's a problem that we're trying to solve where we could be using this method?
Absolutely. So any problem or challenge that you have that is within a process, a policy, an experience can be design thinking can be utilized to help with that. What you're really looking at is trying to establish, is this a challenge that is going to need people to handle that, to be a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is everything that HR does. So, to give you an example, like this is one that's from Hire by Design that I had it before I even knew about design thinking, and I used a very unique piece of design thinking. But like as a recruiter by trade, we're always trying to find people, right? So we're trying to be innovative with ways to find people and then get them, to actually join the organization. And I worked for a company that had sites in locations where there was more cows than people.
Okay.
So, cows can't do call center work. So we really had to hire people. So we had to find them. And so my team and I sat down and, our challenge was how might we be able to get in front of more candidates and show how amazing our company is that they would want to work for us. And so we started brainstorming different ways to do, could we do a job fair? Sure. We could, all the traditional routes can absolutely be done. But what we ended up doing was we mashed up an experience that has nothing to do with recruiting to come up with a really innovative way to, get in front of candidates. And so we talked about, so I'm, like I said, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. So we talked a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds and what they do off season. So off season, they actually travel to cities outside of Cincinnati that have large groups of Cincinnati Reds fans so that they can hang out with them. So they have this thing called Reds Fest here in Cincinnati where we can go and like listen to them, get their autographs. It's super easy for us to, be a part of that experience. They take Reds Fest and they take it to other cities.
Okay.
So we took that and said, what if we had our own little caravan where we, as the recruiters, find somewhere in the cities around where our company is, sit there and meet people there, engage them in their local town before they have to make the trip to our office. So we kind of, did our own little caravan of, okay, these are the 5 cities that we're interested in. And then we found locations like the library. We also were at community centers, wherever anyone would let us just hang out and talk to people. And then we invited people to come to their city, within their city, to meet us before actually coming to our office to do the interview. So that was, one creative way to do it. And then we tested in that market. Did it work? Did it not work? What could we have done differently? And that's, part of iteration within design thinking, kind of doing a prototype and then tweaking and enhancing. And so we did that without even literally knowing that we were doing design thinking at the time.
Wow. Okay. That's a really cool example. And also a great example of how employee engagement is so important. Because if all you recruiters hated working there, you'd have a hard time doing that. But not only were you introducing people to the idea of working for you, but I'm sure there was a whole lot of other positive outcomes that came from that in terms of just
absolutely. I mean, just thinking of like me as a leader, giving my team the ability to come up with those solutions and ideas too, not just saying you have to do it this way, right? Having that collaborative, innovative environment to be able to come up with ideas together, I think is very powerful. And that's exactly part of design thinking is it shouldn't be one person making all the decisions. It should be a group effort. And you're always bringing in your audience that you're trying to serve. So, if I'm trying to serve my recruiters as a leader, I should be asking them questions. I should be understanding their needs, wants, and desires so that I create the best experience for them. Just like the recruiters need to understand the candidates and what's the best experience for them. Just like a C leader needs to understand their business and be able to know what's the best experiences for them. I mean, it really is a big part of design thinking is understanding your audience. And if you don't do that, you will not be successful in solving their problem. You have to know them.
So what's the specific method that your organization went through or you went through with your team? Because for that example, because I'm hearing like in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, we have a pretty psychologically safe and empathetic team, and I just see it like, let's just sit around the table and decide, like brainstorm ideas. But I'm sure there's more to it than that. So what's the process?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to bring a group of people together and ask them for ideas, it definitely needs to be a safe space for them to feel like they can be heard. So a few things that you can do is, one, as the leader, you never start the conversation with your ideas.
Right.
Because guess whose ideas they're going to pick? Yours. So that's the first thing, is make sure you give them the space to provide their ideas first. When you're doing a brainstorming session, when you have the time and you're like, here's all my ideas, you don't want to say no to people. Like, no, that's not going to work. So take yes and use that at all times. So if you have this great idea, but we know it's not feasible for the business, you can say yes. And if we do it this way, I think the business would actually be able to say yes to that. Right. So yes, and super important. And then a lot of times when you are brainstorming in a group, you vote. You do a vote on which ideas you like the best. Again, leader never starts that voting process. And sometimes you might make the leader just step out and not be a part of the voting process if you feel like that's going to cause the team to go with their idea. But then also you give them multiple votes. So you say, pick your top 3. And then that way they're picking maybe yes, maybe the boss's idea, but they get 2 other votes for other people or other ideas. So that also helps ensure that, it is, you're looking at all ideas and making a really good sound decision as a group.
Okay. And I think sometimes there's value to, depending on the problem you're trying to solve, of just starting before you get to the yes and, like, let's just say every weird, crazy idea. Yeah. We're not here to talk it through. Let's just start with what are all the crazy ideas? And then from there, things build and grow. And then you can start saying, okay, what are we really trying to accomplish
you
here?
Can also give a goal. Say the person with the most ideas gets a gift card or gets, some sort of prize. Maybe it's just like literally a fun hat to wear for the rest of the ideation session, but encouraging them to write down every single idea, good, bad, and ugly, because you never know, that ugly idea can become a swan. 100% could be the best idea, but if we're second guessing ourselves the whole time, then it's never going to be. So if you really encourage as many ideas as possible, then everyone's writing anything down if they want to, have that prize, that, gift at the end kind of thing. And then also like encouraging them at whole times. Like whenever I do a brainstorming session, I'm like 15 more seconds. I bet you can't do 3 more. And they're like, I can do 3, like getting them excited the whole time.
Love that.
Energy up so that, again, yes, all ideas are out on the table.
Love that. Love that. So psychological safety and empathy and, some deep interpersonal skills are required in these types of environments. So, we talk a lot about psychological safety here, and we should probably talk more about the word empathy. So I'm curious, let's talk about that word. How does empathy play a role in this? What is empathy? How do we make sure people have it? Let's go down that path.
So first, everyone can have empathy. It's a muscle that can be built up. So I know a lot of people think like some people have no empathy. You absolutely can take the time, energy, and effort to become a stronger empath as a individual. So that's one thing I always like to tell people. It's like, you might know someone, you're like, I just don't think they have empathy in them, but it can be taught, 100% be taught. Empathy is all about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding their perspective, understanding what that experience feels like or what that policy feels like for them. So when you think about empathy, it's immersing yourself into it, really understanding what this individual is going through. And so with design thinking, there's, 4 different ways that you can immerse yourself into empathy when you're trying to understand your audience.
Okay.
And now that I said I'm now, who knows, I might not get through all 4.
I'll do
my best. Now that I'm like, here's the 4. And I'm like, I hope I remember them all.
I hate it when that happens.
It happens to me all the time because I love to talk. So the first one is do it yourself. So a really good example of that is your application online. When's the last time any HR person applied to a job at their organization? How does that feel? What are you thinking? Right? Like I can't tell you how many times I go to a client's application, I find errors. And I'm like, if you don't look at this consistently, if you don't feel it at different times of the experience, you're never going to have a great application for your candidates. So that's just one.
Okay.
Another way is to take something away from you that maybe they don't have. So that could be, so for example, let's say a lot of your employees take public transportation to work and you've never done that yourself. Go do it. You don't have a car anymore. Go do it.
I love that.
Is it easy? Is it hard? Did you miss the train? Did you miss the bus? Did you get there 5 minutes late because of, a circumstance that had nothing to do with you? All of a sudden you start to see all of these roadblocks potentially that your candidate, your employee has.
Yeah.
So, if they don't have what you have, take it away from yourself and see what it's like.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times myself, my team, anyone, we are in the recruiter process day in and day out. Like we know it like the back of our hands. Candidates don't have that. They don't know how important maybe a LinkedIn profile is. They don't know that saying certain things during an interview might cause negativity towards them. So again, being able to recognize their different perspective. Okay, so that was two. So a third one is doing, it's the worst, I never can say this word, an analogous experience. So that is where you take an experience from a completely different industry or whatever and see how it works and then be able to incorporate it into yours. So one that I always talk about that's kind of simple is you want a chatbot on your career page. What should that chatbot be doing on the career page? What kind of questions or what's that engagement that you want? Go to an industry that has already excelled at implementing a chatbot on their website and take that experience. So it might be that your bank has a great chatbot experience, but go there and be the client or customer and go through that experience. And then you can mark down like, oh, I really like this, or, oh, they did it this way, but we could change it to be more recruiter focused in that way. So that is another one that you can do. And the fourth one is completely like out of my head.
I'll take a stab at it. Because this is something I do with my coaching clients and when I'm, training, or just even when I used to teach college, I would say, why don't you go interview some people so I don't know if that's one of the four, but it's something I, a lot of times when I've coached, I'm like, go and talk to a counterpart at from your industry and find out what they're doing. Or you're telling me that this problem's impossible to solve. Probably your counterpart at some other company has the same problem. How have they solved it?
Absolutely. The other piece is observation. So a lot of times companies do focus groups, right? They'll bring like 10 employees in and say, how's work going? How you feel about this policy, this procedure? And you take them completely out of their normal environment. You never really get solid information from them especially when you put them with other people and they're like, well, what do they think about? I mean, there's all kinds of like emotions that can happen in a focus group. So if you observe them while they're working, you can see what they do. You can get to know your team so much better. I have another example, again, pre-knowing design thinking, where I was an admin, I would say maybe more like a super user for our applicant tracking system for a company I worked for. And the number one recruiter was doing something. And of course, I'm listening to her because I want to be the number one recruiter. And all of a sudden I see her take out these like index cards and like flipping them through. And I'm like, what is that? What are these index cards? She's like, well, I have specific questions for each, this is IT recruiting, for each skill set. And these cards tell me the questions I should ask. So this is my project management card. And so it has 5 questions I ask every project manager. I have one for a Java developer. I have one for an architect. And she's like, I've had them my whole career. I've never not had them. And so I was like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. What does that mean? And so I go, does it need to be an index card? You know, I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, I ended up working with the team and we built in our applicant tracking system, like questions per job set, job skill, so that everyone could use her index cards. But if I didn't watch her and observe what she was doing, I would have never known. It's not, it wasn't a practice of our staffing agency. It was something she brought from a different agency. So kind of like what you were talking about, learning from other industries or other people within the industry is so strong, but also just paying attention to the people around you. What are they doing? How are they doing it?
Yeah. And that's sort of the group working together or leaning on each other and respecting each other and their processes so you can learn from them is so important. So important to a positive work environment and to HR. And I love all of this. I'm curious, do you, when you're working with your clients, you're more working as an HR sort of coach, is that right? Or are you doing coaching around this design thinking as well as part of your coaching?
I am a Jill of all trades, Catherine.
Jodi of all trades.
Jodi of all, I like that. Jodi of all trades. My nickname used to be Joe Schmo. So, I mean, that is kind of like the generic work name, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like a Jill of all trades. But I help individuals and groups with understanding design thinking, how to implement those practices within their organization. So it could be companies. I also coach people individually on their HR career, how to, build themselves up, help them maybe become independent consultants themselves, because I think we can use more of us out there in the world. So kind of a mix of it. But whenever I'm working with anyone, I always try to make sure, I'm always trying to be empathetic, understand my person, and use design thinking principles with whatever I'm doing.
Okay. And how do you teach empathy? Because I have a different perspective. So, I coach leaders who have been accused of bullying or harassment, often on the heels of a hostile work environment complaint. And I believe they're already empathetic. So, unless you're a psychopath, you are empathetic. We're social creatures. We're designed that way because that's how we function as social. But the coaching that I use, because I find, maybe my question is more around emotions and empathy. I find that these individuals are, they don't like emotions in the workplace, which, side note, is ironic because yelling is showing an emotion, but they don't see it that way. Anyway,
anger is an emotion.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't like, they feel when they read or when I give them their feedback for my 360, it's kind of like a little bit of, well, that's how they feel. That's their problem. I'm just trying to get stuff done, so that's obviously a lack of empathy. And I teach in the coaching a lot around observing people's behavior. So it's kind of like, whether or not you care about this person or their feelings, you can see how they feel about you. And in order for you to be effective, you have to care. So it's like kind of taking the like emotional relationship stuff out, because that's not how they function. That's why they ended up in coaching with me. So I don't know, this is a long-winded question/comment, I guess. But what are some of the tools beyond those 4 things? I mean, those are all things that would certainly teach empathy, but I think you have to have a layer of it before you could go into those 4.
Yeah.
tasks.
A lot of it's emotional intelligence, right? That's like a key thing that I think a lot of people are lacking. And that's a little different than empathy.
Yeah.
They work hand in hand, but how you develop emotional intelligence versus how you develop empathy are kind of different in how they do it. But there are some really key, simple, easy, fun ways to become more empathetic, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get into someone else's shoes, right? Understand their perspective. How do we do that for fun? Well, we read books. Fiction books. I don't care what kind of fiction books, just as long as there's a story time and there's a character that you're literally embedding yourself into, right? When you're reading a book that is fiction, not nonfiction, right? But a fiction book, it 100% puts you into someone else's life. So the more you read, the more empathetic you can actually be. Now, Catherine,
I hadn't thought about that. Okay.
Now, a lot of people are like, Jodi, I don't like to read. I don't want to read. And I go, fine, go see movies. Literally go watch movies. And when you're there, literally sit there and absorb what they're experiencing and feeling in that movie. Those are the two easiest ways to build up your empathy muscles without really trying. I mean, if you like watching movies, go watch, but at least take the time afterwards and say, what was that person feeling? How did that impact them? You know, based off their feelings, what did they end up doing? Like actually kind of have your own like talk about what happened in the movie and then be able to see it. And you can do this with kids' movies. You can do this with action. You can do this with romance. I mean, every one of them, there's a plot that there is a problem that someone's trying to solve. And so you're watching their steps in how they handle that situation.
Yeah.
You're also going to see the good and the bad, right? You're going to see bullying on the screen. Maybe sit there and think, what did that person feel after the bullying? You know, like it's amazing just taking time to like kind of absorb that movie line and then talk about it a little bit with the person you went with. Yeah. That's going to help build up your empathy.
You're totally bringing back to my college professor days. That was one of I taught interpersonal communication, and that was one of the assignments was pick a movie about relationships of some sort, you know, not Terminator 3 or whatever, but something that would give you some more insight. And then, to watch it and take notes and talk to yourself or write down what do you think these people were feeling, what, you know, and kind of use, you know, obviously using concepts from the class, but I feel like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Great minds.
I mean, go watch Frozen, watch Trolls, I love Frozen. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many, there are so many great storylines out there that really can help you understand others. And so the other thing is maybe go see a movie where people don't look like you in the movie, so you can experience that in a way where you're not being disrespectful by asking a lot of inappropriate questions to someone that doesn't look like you. Like, do some effort, like take some time to be a part of a community, and a movie is a great way to start it. And then, you know, maybe you can do baby steps into other pieces to kind of engage others and who don't look like you and to understand their perspective. It's just so important to be willing to be open. And I think that's where we want to be closed. We want to be like, well, this is how it is, and this is how we do it. When actually, why is it this way? Why are we doing this way? Is it just because at one point in our human lives, that was the best way to do it? Well, is it still the best way to do it? You know, we have expanded. We are like so amazing with what we can do technologically. Yeah. There's all these things that we can literally go and like break them down and maybe come up with better experiences for everyone versus just a few.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jodi. That was a great kind of closeout comment. So Jodi, where can everyone get a hold of you in case they want to talk to you more?
I love where we're at right now. LinkedIn is my favorite. I love connecting there. So if they would like to, you know, connect with me, and I will absolutely connect there. And then if they have any interest in reading any of my books, I'm on Amazon, and you can just put in Jodi Brandstetter and find any book that I've been a part of.
I love that you've written so many in all these different kind of spaces in HR. So thank you so much, Jodi. And yes, this recording will be here forever as long as LinkedIn exists and allows it to be there. So come on back or contact Jodi through LinkedIn, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.